This is Jam4 Tactical Podcast. Who we have here today as a guest is Liz Case. She is running against Stan Lambert for House District 71 right here in the Big Country area. And she's a conservative. She's Second Amendment. And we're going to bring her on and we're going to talk to her a little bit. And I know there's some miscommunication, things like that out there. Misinformation being fed to some of the voters, and we want to put that out there and make sure that we get the correct information to the people so they can make the right decision, right?
It would help.
Now, one thing I did notice, I got to tell on you, what year is your iPhone?
I'm not a big technology fan. I can deal with it as long as it can take pictures and call people. That's all I need.
That is awesome. I was looking at that saying, yeah, she's just a basic person with a basic phone.
Yep.
And
I don't need anything special.
That's the type of people we need in the industry. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you used to be a teacher and a single mom.
Yep. I was a single mom for years. I've got 4 children that are all grown now. They all 4 went to public school. I taught in public schools for over a decade. And I don't know how this narrative started that I'm against public schools because, I taught in public schools. And nobody teaches because they're in it to make money. We do it because we love the children. And I know the narrative out there is that if people vote for me, I'm going to destroy public schools. I don't know how I would have that much power, but I love the public schools. I never wanted to teach anyplace else, and my mom was a teacher, my grandmother. I come from a long line of teachers. So education is something I'm passionate about.
Yes, and the public schools, we need public schools, but what a lot of, I think, some misinformation that's being given to people out there, because I have talked to a couple of superintendents, and I think there's some misinformation being given to them, and I'm not an expert on this, and this is not my field. This is your field because you used to be the teacher, so I kind of stayed back from this one, but I think it's over the vouchers. I think that they think that it's the vouchers going to the private schools, and it's going to end up pulling kids out of public schools. But from what I was reading, it was actually going to also, but there was only a cap there. There was only so much money to be able to do that and be able to spend $8,000 a year or $1,000 if you decided you wanted to homeschool your kids, and that would be able, especially homeschool people, give them a little extra money, because I had 2 homeschool parents in here earlier that were talking about that, and they already homeschool.
Yeah.
But it was going to give them $1,000 per kid, and they would, buy supplies, things like that. But I think there's the narrative that we're trying to go all private schools, which is completely impossible. We can't do that. We have too many kids, and but I think that's the narrative that's being fed to individuals right now. And me being a parent, now I'm not an expert on this voucher thing, but I have read into it. Now, me being a parent, my son is in public school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't afford high dollar schools. And even if I could afford a high dollar school, my kid would go to public school.
Yep.
Because that's where he's going to get his best education.
Yep.
That's where he's going to get the interaction with other kids. That's where he's going to be able to play sports because he's in a bigger school and be able to compete. And I'm not saying anything about private schools are bad, but he's got more of a challenge there because you have more kids there. But there's still only so much money to go to the private schools. It's impossible to get rid of public schools.
Well, there's a lot of confusion, and I don't think that's anybody's fault, because we had a regular session and we had 2 special sessions where we addressed this school stuff. And there was bills on the House side and there was bills on the Senate side, and all of those were different. And so that's 6 different bills that we're talking about. And so some of those bills on the House side were disastrous. I mean, one of those House bills was 200 pages long. Now, up in DC, they do that kind of stuff. They write bills that are 200 pages long. At the Texas Capitol, we do not do that. I mean, that is huge for a bill in Texas. We write 5-page bills and we say, look, this is what we want. This is what we're doing, plain and simple. So a 200-page bill is an anomaly for us. That's
kind of like they're trying to hide things in the bill to get it passed. You've really got to look into some things. But I've looked through this bill, a little bit, and I really don't see a downside to it. Besides, yes, it's going to give, the ability to some parents to be able to put their kids in private school. And public schools depend on that. But the public schools were going to get more money per kid also.
Well, if you look at the way the bill was structured, and like I'm saying, every one of those different bills had a little bit different figure in there. But basically what they were saying was that 30 to 40% of the allocation of the money was going to go to special ed kids. And 30 to 40% of the money was going to go to economically disadvantaged kids. And the only figure that I ever saw for people who had their kids in private school was 10%. And 10% of parents that had their kids in private school already could enter a lottery, and maybe they would win that lottery and be able to get money to be able to continue to send their kids to private school. I mean, this is not, we're going to take everybody out of public schools. I mean, if your kid's in special ed, then you might get funding. If you're really economically disadvantaged, then you might be able to get funding to be able to take your kid out and put them in a different school. But that is not most people.
And it's there's only so much there. It's not like there's.
Well, if we use generous figures, I mean really generous figures, we've got 5.4 million students in Texas. And if we use really generous figures from everybody that I talked to, 5% of the public school children in Texas would be able to benefit from that program. I mean, that leaves 95% of the kids in public school. So this whole idea that they're selling that public schools are going to disintegrate if this program happens is just, it's just not going to happen. It's not possible. They can't give that much money out there. There's just not that much money available. So to me, the bottom line is we've got to fix the public schools. We've got to quit this bowing down to the woke agenda that the left has, and all this crazy stuff that they're teaching in the public schools. Now, I know that there are a lot of schools that are not teaching that, especially in this area. But because it's being done in a lot of the other school districts, that means it's headed this way. And so that's my concern. But if we go back to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, then in Texas, we have a 65% percent of kids that are under grade level in reading, and a 45% kids that are under grade level in math across the state. And it just shouldn't be that way. And I think if we go back to basics, we can fix that.
And I 100% agree with you, because at this point we're just creating workers and not thinkers. And that breaks my heart more than anything, because I'm an entrepreneur. I didn't go to college. I joined the Marine Corps. I don't have a college graduate or degree or any of that stuff. I have a high school degree and a degree of how to shoot an M16 and drive an LVS and a Humvee and a 5-ton.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
But no, there's not. There's nothing wrong with that. And I love the Marine Corps, but I as an entrepreneur, thank goodness I married a smart girl. No, but yes, I mean, it's just like we're producing just workers, and I have an issue with the STAR test, personally.
I don't know anybody that doesn't have an issue.
Did this bill get rid of the STAR test?
Yes, the last Senate bill, and they're not telling a lot of people this, but the last Senate bill would have completely gotten rid of the STAR test. It would have given teachers a $4,000 pay raise, and it would have put a tremendous amount of money into rural school districts. And I think that's information that's not getting out. And, back when I was teaching, we were calling it something different, but those tests that make a child on one day of the year show what they know and put so much pressure on the kids, on the teachers, on the administrators. That's just not the way to do this. And teachers know it, administrators know it, superintendents know it, but we don't have any choice, and we've got to find a better way to do this. We knew how to do it back in the day. I mean, we would test them after every chapter. I mean,
yes.
We did this incrementally, and that's what we need to go back to.
Maybe that's why I become a business owner and I need that college degree, because the fact that I actually learned a lot in school.
Yes.
Instead of just being taught how to pass a test.
Yes.
And I feel that's holding some of our teachers back. And I've talked to some teachers, and they want to teach. But at this point, their kids' grades or academics on that STAR test is a big reflection on them.
Of course it is, and that's not the right way to do it.
And it's almost like they're being forced to teach how to pass a test, and only that, because if they teach the way they want to teach, and they teach the things, like they did back when we were, and their kids, did fail, it's a reflection on them. And it's not that they're a bad teacher, it's just that STAR test is, my wife, I mean, we have 4 boys that's gone through it. And during STAR test time, my wife gets up, she goes to the grocery store, she buys some grapes, she buys some bananas. She gets up and cooks them a full-blown breakfast, and, we only got one left.
Everybody's life changes during that period.
And she is so concentrated on trying to make sure these kids, it's not like she didn't take care of them already, but it's like we're going to go in overdrive to focus on trying to help them pass a test. I just don't understand it, and I never understood the STAR test from the beginning, and I don't agree with it. I wish they would go back, because we have common sense. They talk about the Gen Xers and the Boomers. We have common sense. Now, I'm not saying there's millennials out there that don't have common sense, by no means. There's a lot of them out there, but there's a whole lot more that don't than there are Gen Xers. Maybe that's the reason,
Well, I can just share a few stories from, back when I was doing this. I know kids that were in class with my children that went out and threw up on testing day. And in one of the schools I taught in, we had an administrator that went to the hospital during testing time because he had a heart attack. The administrators were under that much pressure. I mean, that is just a ridiculous way to run things. And we need to free our teachers up
and
to do what they do best.
Our superintendent.
Teach these kids. I mean, it all rolls downhill. Everybody is under a ridiculous amount of pressure because you are saying that this one snapshot in time is when you're going to show us what you know.
I mean, it's a big reflection on these kids' futures, college, stuff like that. I mean, I just don't understand. We need to go back to the way it was. And that takes the pressure off the teachers. That takes the pressure off the superintendents, and they're not, stressing over their entire school taking this test at one time. and they're going, I need a high percentage pass rate on this or I'm going to lose my job in the morning. Because I know that the more pressure you put on people, the more high stress you put on people in a work environment, they get nervous, they try harder, and end up not doing as good of a job. But if you relax them, give them a little bit of freedom, breathing room, and let them do their job and not be hurt, not make them feel the way they do now, they're going to do they're going to do their max capability. They're going to maximize their work and their teaching, and they're going to do so much better of a job. And I mean, for instance, like here at JM4 Tactical, we are never micromanaging. We don't ever pressure our employees. And we run a pretty successful company. I mean, we hire pretty successful people that do a job, and they maximize their self because we're not coming down on them, we're not pressuring them, we're not on top of them. I mean, Kate right here could vouch for that, huh? I mean, me and her, she's been here probably 2 months, 3 months, sorry. Um, uh, but we don't pressure her. She does a phenomenal job. She comes in, she loves her job. She loves what she's doing. At least I think she does. But she loves her job, but she don't feel the pressure. And it's the same thing with these teachers. If we take that off of them to where they feel like their job is now always under fire, and let them just do their job, we're going to get so much more production out of them.
Well, we are, but we also need to go back to, I mean, to me, I have a heart for teachers because I was one for 10 years, and both of my sisters taught, and my mom, and all the way down the line. But, I mean, what we really need to focus on is the children. And you can't believe the amount of stress that this puts on children. I mean, if it's putting this amount of stress on the adults, children don't know how to handle stress. They don't have coping mechanisms like we do. So, it's kind of borderline child abuse to do this to kids. So, we know how to do this. I mean, we did it for decades. I mean, people have come to me and asked me, but what are we going to do if we get rid of this national testing instrument? And I'm like, well, we're going to go back to doing it the way we did before. You did Chester tests, you did unit tests. I mean, you did an end of the year test. I mean, this is not a mystery.
And some of the greatest things, when did the STAR test come around? What year was it?
Oh, well, we've been doing it for a couple of decades because I've been out of teaching over 10 years, and it was the tax test, and we had one before that. So, I mean, and the amount of money they spend on this test is out of control.
See, I don't remember being pressured, so maybe it's got a little bit more heart. I don't know. But I graduated in 96 now. I'm telling my old age. And we probably could have, but that was a different time. Mm-hmm. Some of the greatest things were invented in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Like Metallica. Kid, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Now we got Bieber and...
Yes, things have changed greatly, but we're not even going there.
But I'm glad you were able to explain that, because I think there's just being a lot of misinformation being fed out there.
Oh, there has.
And I'm definitely going to send this podcast to a couple of our superintendents and a couple of teachers that are, I think they were just, they didn't know everything about the bills and different ones.
Well, I mean, I was down there. I was down there for 3/4 of the days during regular session. And the time I wasn't down there, I was watching all the broadcasts. And I was watching the broadcast during both of the special sessions and keeping up with the bills. And it is complicated and it is difficult to do. And I'm fortunate that I'm at home now and my kids are grown. A teacher doesn't have the ability to do that. A superintendent doesn't have the ability to do that. There's no way for them to do that with the pressures they have on them and the workload that they have on them. And then when you've got a family on top of that, there's absolutely no way for them to be able to do that. And that's why I do what I do, because somebody has to go down there and watch what's going on in Austin and hold our people accountable.
We now there's been some misinformation fed out about you. That you moved to Abilene. Now I know that's false.
Yep.
That you've actually owned a ranch here for a very long time.
Yep.
And like a lot of people, they live in a smaller town and then they commute to a bigger city to, I don't know, make more money. I mean,
Yeah, we can clear up the residency thing. That would probably be a help.
yeah, and then and then also, you have spent a lot of time in Austin.
Yep.
A lot of time in Austin. Not being paid to do it.
Yep.
Free will.
Mm-hmm. So the last 8 years, I've been going down to Austin on my own dime, on my own time. I started out just as a one-issue person because George P. was trying to reimagine the Alamo, and that's what got me down there. But then I started looking at how many issues were going unaddressed. So I started working on conservative legislation, and then I started watching our representative and seeing that he wasn't working on our conservative issues. But, I mean, I was down in Austin and watching the bills and calling people back here in the district and letting them know, hey, this bill is coming up. Call your senator, call your state representative, and let them know how you feel about this particular bill. It's coming up in committee. It's coming up for a vote. You need to let them know. And I felt like I was being really effective doing that. And I don't need a title. I mean, I don't need a new cell phone. I don't need a title. And it wasn't until people really started bugging me about running for months and months and months. And I saw that nobody else was going to step up and run.
We appreciate you running, from me to you. And I've had some issues, and I don't expect you to ever talk bad about your opponent, but I will. No. Because and it's not talking about, it's just telling the truth. And one of the issues I have that really hit home with me is there is a whole lot of people asking, how is Hendricks buying everything up? How is Hendricks buying everything up? How is this not considered a monopoly? How? And I be dadgum, House Bill 3301 that Stan Lambert wrote, him and the representative from San Angelo wrote, and now this only affects 8 counties, and it's his district and the other representative. Of course it passed because the other House representatives didn't care because it's not their district, but wrote a bill, and of course that opens up a gate that another house could say, well, y'all passed it here, why can't I do it here? That could open up a whole mess. But that bypassed the U.S. Trade Former Vice President of the Texas Medical Association told them this is a bad idea. But that pretty much give them the roadmap that the bill him and this other House rep wrote that only affected us to buy everything up. And they said it was going to be a bad thing for the community, the people.
Well, and it doesn't just affect Abilene, it affects everybody in the big country because we no longer have competition.
Medical choice. And that goes for our nurses. It goes for people that, doctors.
Talk to many of them.
I've fixed to say, there's been a couple say, but it leaves the private practices because they even even if a doctor needed to do surgery, where we had to go? Hendricks, or go to Dallas. That has opened up now. Shannon Medical Center in San Angelo bought up, I think it was San Angelo something, but it's all owned by, I wrote it down here, Hendricks and Shannon Medical Center is all owned by Community Health Center System, and it's a Fortune 500 company in Tennessee. I feel like I've been sold out from my own state rep. That's what bugged me the most, because I've read through it, I've looked through it. There's articles out there. No one knew about this. No one. Why would he do something like that? I'm not going to ask you, but I want to know, if you get in to be a House rep, if the community and the big country vote you in, can you and will you fix this? I mean, is another hospital allowed to come in? I mean, it's pretty much they own all our 24-hour emergency, deals. They pretty much own a few of those. They own all the doctor's offices, just about. I mean, pretty much everywhere you go is owned by Hendricks. Now, you being a House representative, and this being an issue, especially for our big country, I know this is going to take some time for you to read up on, but are you willing to help us undo this?
Well, this is a disaster, because this was done last session, which is 2 years ago. And so now people are starting to feel the effects of that. People have had to start seeking medical care, and the prices have gone up because there is no competition, and it's really starting to negatively affect people's lives, and that's a terrible thing.
It's also going to negatively affect their employees, because their employees are born and raised here. They've gone to college, they want to raise their family here, and now they have nowhere else to go work. So either you do what they say, or you move and go somewhere else. Yeah. Because this is their town. This is their big country. And if you don't like it as a doctor or a nurse, they don't care. Go somewhere else. Move your family somewhere else, or go work somewhere else and not be a nurse or a doctor. That is not a good situation for their employees to be headed down. I mean, and that's what it could boil down to. I mean, because they own it. And it's the same thing as being patients. They can say no. Or if you don't like it, we don't care. If you don't want to pay this amount, go to Dallas. We don't care. That's not a good position for us to be in, because it's almost like we're being forced. Play ball with them or get out of their big country. They don't care, and that's not right. This is our home. This is our home, not theirs. And they've pretty much taken it over. The way I feel about it, and I feel Stan Lambert has stabbed me in the back. I voted on him more than once, and I have voted on him, and I feel like he just stabbed me in the back. Because, and I'll give you an example. When Greg Abbott lifted the mandate, Hendricks went to every school board meeting telling the school boards to continue to mandate our kids to continue to wear masks. I drove all the way from Houston to fire Hendricks at a school board meeting. Okay?
For you.
But that's me. I'm going to.
Well, but you knew it was going on. You knew what your rights were to be able to do that. And you had the time and the ability. And if you're working 2 jobs, if you don't know what your rights are, not everybody has the personality to step out and say, okay, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to make noise. That's difficult for a lot of people to do.
Well, another thing is I didn't come from a rich family. I've come from a single mom, raising me, and we didn't have a lot of money. My mom did everything she could, but, me and my wife, we have the money. I can take my son to Dallas. If I've got to go take him to a different pediatrician, we're gone. what I'm concerned about is the people that don't have a choice. They have put these people into a position to where you're going to do what they say, or you don't like it, oh well.
And that's more people than not are the ones that can't
And I
afford
feel
that.
so bad because, I was one of those kids.
Yep.
My mom would have been able to afford that.
Of course not.
And, as a single mom, and it's not her fault. She worked her butt off. She was going to college full time. She did everything she could for me. And I love my mother dearly, but she wouldn't have been able to afford to do that,
And that's heartbreaking as a mother to know that you can't do the things that you want to do
Because you're
for your
being
kids.
controlled. And then you have, anyways, at the school board meeting, I went up there and told them, the school board, that as of immediately effective today, Hendricks Medical Center, because his pediatrician happened to be under Hendricks Medical Center, was no longer my son's primary caregiver, and that they had no right being up there giving medical advice for my son. And I have the ability to do that, and I fired him. I didn't care. But there's a lot of people who couldn't have done that because
For many reasons. Yeah.
for many reasons, and a lot of it being financial. And you should never put a person into a situation to do something, forcing them to do things and agree with you because of financial situation.
Especially when it comes to your medical care. I
And they're
mean,
kids. These are your kids. And thank goodness the schools, because there were several parents were lined up ready to file lawsuits because the government, you're breaking the law at that point.
Yep.
I just, I've always thought about that, and that made me pretty mad because now you see why the whole medical. That's really
yeah. I'm right there with you.
because I felt like they were trying to force us. And then you know what? I took a picture of them. All three of them. They walk right outside, take their masks off, and are within like 6 inches of each other in the parking lot. And I snapped this picture. I was like, "What in the world?" I was like, "Come on, now you're not gonna do this. We're not gonna play this game." But anyways, so now we're gonna go on. I'm gonna move on, and so I know that's gonna take some time, and we're doing our best. I'm hoping people listen to you. I'm hoping people really get out there and really see that you're a good person, because you're not doing this for money. You've been doing this, and I do want to mention one thing. Gun Owners of America has endorsed you.
Yes, I have.
Gun Owners of America, and I talked to them. Of course, we're big contributors of Gun Owners of America. I love Gun Owners of America, but they 100% are standing behind you, and they are endorsing you because they know that you're about the Second Amendment, and that is phenomenal. And I've talked to Wes, the director of State of
I'm
Texas.
very proud of that. Wes is a good
Wes is
guy.
awesome.
Yeah, he is. We're good friends.
He's a good guy.
We've worked together in Austin a lot.
Yeah, he is big. Gun Owners of America is a big organization.
And we've done a lot of work on legislation in the last 2 sessions.
They helped us keep our pistol braces.
Yep.
I'm
We
sure
worked
did.
on that.
And I guess you're going to continue to work with
Yes.
them
Mm-hmm.
on bills and making sure that we hold, we're keeping our Second Amendment rights and our constitutional rights, and not letting them ban, everything over 10-round mags and tax stamps and everything else. I guess you're going to continue to help
Yep.
with that.
Yep.
Fight for our gun rights, and that's
I've been
awesome.
doing that for a long time, so I will continue
That's
to
what
do
I was
that.
told.
Oh, so then we have the border, of course.
That is my top priority, is the border. Because if we don't fix that, then we're going to be in a world of hurt.
The 3 individuals, you heard about 3 individuals that froze to death. It was on Fox News that they had fentanyl in their system. Fentanyl is the number 1 killer in 18 to 34-year-old males right now. A lot of people don't see that.
This used to be, I remember 4 years ago when we were working at the state convention, one of the ladies that sat 2 over from me was from Kinney County. And she was doing a great job of really educating a lot of us about the problems at the border, and she's got a ranch right there and telling us, the things she was finding, and I won't even begin to go into that. But at that point, things had not spilled over as much. But right now, Abilene is a drop-off point, and they're busing them here and taking them all over the country. But even more than that, right now, you can live in Midland or you can live in Michigan, and your teenager is at risk of dying of a fentanyl overdose. It doesn't matter where in the country you are now, because your kids are at risk in their very own bedroom because the fentanyl epidemic is so bad. I mean, China is after us through the cartels, and the fentanyl is everywhere.
A lot of people don't realize that's where fentanyl is coming from, is China.
It is.
Coming from China.
Well, they know that that's the best way. I mean, they don't need to come over and attack us. They don't have to lose any of their people because they can take us out and destroy us from within.
Fentanyl is but it is a number one killer right now. And that when I researched it, I was like, that's crazy. 18 to 34-year-old males right now. But those three individuals up there that froze to death in their friend's backyard, I would have never in my life dreamed. I just figured they got drunk and passed out and froze to death. I would have never in my life dreamed it was fentanyl. And that's what the autopsies come back. It was on Fox News. I was just like mind blown. And I was like, I'd have never thought that. But it has made its way up there. It has made its way up there, and now it's become an issue. There was another issue. New York has now dishomed a bunch of senior citizens, including a 95-year-old veteran, put them out of senior living centers so they could make room for immigrants that are coming over the border. Now, there are some decent people coming over from the border, but it's the outweigh of the bad is outweighed the good at this point. It used to be the good outweighed the bad, because most of them come over here, work, go back home. But now we've got people from all over the world coming across that border, and they're not coming here to work. I mean, you take the people, the immigrants up there in New York that attacked the New York cops, and then got released within 4 or 5 hours. And now they're gone. They were flipping the cameras off, walking around, and now they're gone. That is what, and I don't think the rest of the world understands, that is what we are trying to stop. It's not the good ones. We're trying to say, hey, you can come in, but we're going to vent you.
Well, and I've got a friend that was a Border Patrol agent for years, and he said, when you go down there and talk to them, they don't even know what the word asylum means. They are not coming here because they're being persecuted in their country and they need to escape persecution. They don't even know what that word means. That's not what this is. And 90% of them are military-age men that are by themselves. Yes. And we're going to pay a price for the fact that we are not vetting these people and that we're letting in millions of military-age men that we don't know what foreign countries they're coming from. We just need to know who they are and where they're coming from, and that they're not here to do us harm. I mean, that just makes sense.
And there's nothing wrong with us. I mean, it's no different than, you opening up your front door and just letting whoever walk in your house. You want to lock that door, and when they knock on your door, who are you? What do you need? If you're not comfortable with them, you're not going to let them in your house, and because you're protecting your family. And we have to look at that the same way as America. This is our family. Us as Americans, we're family, and we should be looking out for each other's well-being. Who's at that front door, because we just don't want them walking in our house, because they could eventually, do harm to us, kind of like the New York cops. They're both back at work. I think one of them had a shoulder injury. It was a couple of days, but those guys are gone. They're gone. And they'll be back probably next year, across the same border if we don't get something shut down. And it could be worse this time. It's not a good thing for us. But I'm glad you know Weston Martinez.
Oh, I know Weston very well. Yes,
he is
He
loud.
texted me 3 days ago.
Well, you tell Wes. I mean, Wes is really pushing. Weston Martinez, he used to be the real estate commissioner. He didn't run for land commissioner.
Yep.
Now, I have some issues that me and him discussed. That if he become land commissioner, he was gonna set some things
Yes,
straight.
he was.
And a lot of people do not realize Canada owns 800,000 acres of wetlands in East Texas. Is that correct? What can we do to stop countries from buying our land?
Well, that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked that question.
Because that's not, I mean, I understand being able to sell it to whoever you want to sell it to, but I cannot go to Mexico and buy property in Mexico.
Of course you can't. And what we really should have issue with is countries that intend to do us harm, countries that are on our watch list. And we had a bill 4 years ago that was supposed to contain that, but it was not very well written. And so we thought we had taken care of the problem. And we had a senator this session that wrote a bill that was going to address China in particular has come in and bought up a lot of our land, and a lot of our land around military bases in particular, which is not a good thing for us. And of course, it passed the Senate, but we couldn't get it passed in the House because of Dade Phelan and some of our Rhino friends in the House, and it would have taken care of that problem. And that's a bill that we've got to get passed in the 89th legislature, because we cannot, for the safety of our country, we cannot let these foreign governments be buying up our land, buying up our agriculture land, and buying up land next to our military base.
Well, it's the pig farm. The retired general
Yes.
from the China Army bought the pig farm, and it's a solar farm now, right?
Yes, it is.
How does, I mean, like, Texas ain't our Texas anymore. I mean, it's Canada's, it's China's, we've got to put a stop to that, and we've got to be able to say, hey, we're going to take the land back, period. Your country, you don't need it. You have no right owning our land here in the state of Texas. We're taking it back. Repossession.
I mean, well, that's what Sarah Huckabee Sanders did. I mean, the governor of Arkansas,
I've seen that.
not only did they pass the bill that said you can't buy up any more of the land, but any that you own, you've got to give it back. We're taking it back. And that's the kind of stand that has to be taken. I mean,
Yes.
you've got to have a backbone and stand up. I mean, this is Texas, for God's sakes. I mean, it's time that we started showing people what Texas is about, because some people have forgotten, and I think it's time that we remind them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think we've covered a lot of issues today, and I'm really hoping and that we get you in there, and I see a whole lot of support from you, and I see a lot of support. Now, we're supposed to, the Republican deals tonight, are they debating there?
Well, it's not being called a debate. It's being called a forum. The doors open tonight at 5 o'clock, and the forum begins at 5:30. It's at the Mesquite Center, which is 201 Mesquite. And there will be the sheriff's candidates, there will be the state rep candidates, and there will also be the Congressional District 19, which is Jody Arrington and the people that are opposing him. So all three of those
Now, your
Right.
opponent, is it going to be there?
Well, my opponent was invited, and my opponent confirmed that he would be there. And what we were told, that was unless the governor called another special session.
But now he's not going to be there. And from what I heard, and you don't have to, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, is that he seems to think it's biased because there's a group of judges or something there. Is from what I was told. I don't know, and now that he's not coming tonight. And I'm hoping we can get this video out today. She said they're going, yeah. Oh, anyways, I want to thank you for coming in.
Well, of course. I mean, I'm just glad to have the ability to be able to talk to the people and let them know what I really think. And, I'm not going to be everybody's candidate because I'm not a real good politician. I'm just not going to be. I'm not going to figure out what people want to hear and adjust my answers accordingly. I'm just going to tell people what I think because...
Stay off Twitter.
You don't have to worry about that. I'm just going to tell people what I think. And if you guys hear what I have to say and you agree with me, then you need to vote for me. If you hear what I have to say and you don't agree with me, then you need to vote for my opponent. But I'm not going to adjust my answers based on what I think anybody else wants to hear, because that's what politicians do.
I was going to say, so you're not a politician.
I'm not a politician. Sorry.
And you're doing this for the big country. You're doing this for your community. It pays like $7,000 a year. It's not like it's
well, and then you have to go and live in Austin with that $7,000 a year.
$7,000 a year unless you write bills to help. I didn't say that. So, let's just put it this way. I will not be making money doing this job. So we need somebody like you in the big country. We need somebody like you, I feel, that's going to work for us people. And that's why we covered the important subjects to people right here that's in the big country. And to get it out there and level and put it out there. I mean, these are the issues people are having. I know this because I'm living in the big country, and these are my issues also.
Yep, and you're talking to people like I am. And these are the things that they want to know about. And these are the things that really and truly are important to my heart. And I think people need to hear the facts and just know what I think. And then they can decide. It just gives them a chance to know what I really think. And then that way they can make their decision on who's the right candidate for them. Because I'm not everybody's candidate.
Well, I see NRA also endorsed you.
Yes, I have an A rating from the NRA.
So you've been endorsed by NRA and GOA, Ken Paxton, Ted Cruz, which there's some people that don't like Ken Paxton. There's some people that don't like Ted Cruz. But you know what? I think that's just a witch hunt, just like it was on Trump. But that's my personal opinion. But yes, I want to. I'm glad to know this about the teachers and about the vouchers because a little bit more explains it. And I'm going to hopefully get this done today. And I want to thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
And hopefully we'll have you back in here as a House representative.
Well, I will be back because the thing is, regardless of how this turns out, I'm going to be in Austin because I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing.
Because you love doing it.
Well, it's not necessarily fun because, I got to get up at 4 and 5 in the morning and drive to Austin to get there for those committee meetings and all that. But, it's important and somebody's got to do it.
And if you weren't doing it, nobody would probably. I don't know a lot of people that want to say, I'll volunteer to go, down to Austin at 4 a.m. in the morning and listen to a whole bunch of stuff. I remember when CNN used to be boring. Okay, now CNN's full of excitement because people are screaming at each other. but we need to get back to where it was boring. But yes, we need people like you. I mean, we know, and you've been fighting for this community in the state of Texas, and nobody even knew it. And that's not all. How did they say it? Not all heroes wear capes. So we appreciate it. You know, we really do, and I'm hoping a lot of people get out there and really make the right decision. Because I tell you right now, we've backed you, and I'm big on the Constitution. I'm big on people's rights. I'm big on, this community, and I've always been that way, and I'm very vocal about it. In fact, there's some people out there in this community politicians don't like me right now, but it's okay.
That probably means you're doing the right thing, though.
And that's okay, because I tell people all the time, I love this community. This is where I grew up. And it's about the people of Abilene, the people of the big country, Sweetwater. I mean, all the surrounding towns. I know people in all these towns. I'm friends with people in all these towns. And there are a lot of good folks out there. There's so many, and they don't need to be trampled on.
Well, and they don't need to be ignored. It just irritates me to no end. Because I've been to every one of the towns in the district, and when I hand them my material, they don't look at what my issues are. They don't care, because
they're just going, wow. Somebody's actually here going to talk to me. But you're going to make a commitment you're going to continue to do.
Of course. Well,
I know
why
that.
Why would you not?
And I'm going to go ahead saying it. I have better luck seeing Bigfoot than I do our House rep now. I mean, that's honest. I told you, I'm just the way I am. I mean, I got a better chance of seeing Sasquatch, get a good 4K photo of him in the woods than I do seeing our own House rep. And I've called his office a few times. I didn't get a response, and I've told you about that. And that was a big issue. When you have people flying in from all over the country, that was a huge issue.
Yep.
And we won't talk about it here, but Liz does know about it. But she's going to make a commitment. I noticed she's busy. I mean, it doesn't pay a lot to be House rep, but she's going to listen to the people in the town.
But here's the thing. People get to Austin and they forget
who they are.
Well, but they forget that they work for the people. I mean, that's what the whole job is about. I mean, it's not about you being there and you being a big deal, because you're not a big deal. You're just working for the people of your district.
Yeah, it's not about, you're not working for Fortune 500 companies. You're working for the people.
Yep.
I said that.
I mean, you're working for the people of your district. And, I mean, you guys, what you see is who I am. And that doesn't change.
Well, I appreciate you, Liz, and I really do. And I'm rooting for you 100%.
Thank you.
Because we need to stay red and not be purple or blue. Or we need to stay red.
100%.
All right. Make sure you get out there and vote. When is voting and when's early voting?
Okay. Early voting begins Tuesday, February 20th. It goes through Friday, March 1st, and Election Day is Tuesday, March the 5th. So y'all get out and vote.
Get out, do your research. Please look Liz up. She'll be around town. And like she said, she's not going to be, even if she gets elected in, or if she does, she's still going to be fighting for the community, but she's going to get out there and she's going to continue listening to the communities and making sure that she's doing the right job for us, doing what's in the best interest of us and not Fortune 500 companies. But that being said,
you can go to my website and look me up, and you can contact me through my website if you have any questions. It's Liz4Texas.org.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you get out there and vote. Check us out at jam4tactical.com. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.